They had never left their quiet little village. Never sat in a plane, never seen the clouds up close. For Albert and Margaret, this journey wasn't just about reaching their son, it was a dream decades in the making. But in the cold aisles of that aircraft, their innocence was mocked, their dignity crushed. What should have been the most beautiful day of their lives turned into a lesson the world needed to learn. Before we start the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like the story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future stories like this one. Albert Fischer and his wife Margaret had spent most of their lives in a quiet town on the outskirts of Vienna. Now in their 70s, they had never once flown in an airplane. But after years of saving, their son Daniel finally gifted them 2 tickets to visit him in London. For Albert and Margaret, this wasn't just a trip, it was a lifelong dream coming true. They arrived at the airport in their best clothes. Albert wore his old wool blazer and Margaret clutched her leather handbag with both nervousness and excitement. The airport was overwhelming: security checks, loud announcements, bustling passengers, it all felt like another world. Still, they managed to reach the gate, thanks to the help of a few kind strangers along the way. When they stepped onto the aircraft, Margaret looked out of the window and whispered, "It's like we're stepping into the sky itself." Albert smiled and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Their seats were in the middle row. As they tried to stow their small hand luggage, a young flight attendant named Sophie Langley approached with a frown. "Please take your seats quickly. You're blocking the aisle," she said sharply, her voice devoid of patience. Albert gave a polite smile and said, "We're sorry. It's our first time flying. Could you help with the bag?" Sophie rolled her eyes and replied, "You should have asked for help at the gate. This isn't my responsibility." Margaret's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She sat down quickly, avoiding the gazes of other passengers who were now watching. Albert struggled to put the bag away himself. Their joy began to dim. Later, Albert tried adjusting his seat but accidentally pressed the call button. When Sophie arrived, she was visibly irritated. "Sir, this button is not for playing. Use it only when necessary." "I'm sorry," Albert said softly. "I thought it was for water." "Well, next time, ask before pressing it." Margaret looked away, her eyes welling up. The whispers from other passengers stung more than Sophie's words. They had never felt so out of place. When the meal cart came around, the couple didn't understand the options. Albert asked, "What's the difference between the 2 choices?" Sophie snapped, "It's written clearly. Can you not read?" Before Albert could respond, a voice from the seat behind them spoke up. "That's enough," said a young woman named Elena Rossi, another flight attendant off duty, and flying as a passenger. She stood and walked up to the front. "I've been watching you speak to this elderly couple with zero respect. They asked for help, and you embarrassed them. If you don't fix your attitude, I'll make sure a complaint reaches your supervisor before this flight even lands." Sophie stiffened. The surrounding passengers murmured in agreement. Another man chimed in, "She's right. This is disgraceful behavior." The senior crew member, alerted by the tension, arrived soon after. After listening to the passengers, she turned to Albert and Margaret with genuine concern. "I'm so sorry for how you were treated. That's not how we treat guests, especially our elders." Sophie was pulled aside and relieved of service duties for the remainder of the flight. Elena took over attending to Albert and Margaret, gently offering them water, helping Margaret recline her seat, and bringing a warm blanket. Margaret whispered, "I wish someone like her had greeted us from the beginning." When they landed in London, their son Daniel was waiting at arrivals. But instead of the happy reunion he imagined, he saw tears in his mother's eyes. "Are you okay, Mum?" he asked, alarmed. Albert put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Son, we flew through clouds. But what hurt was the storm inside that plane." Daniel, a journalist, recorded their story and published it under the headline "Dignity Denied at 30,000 Feet." The post went viral across Europe. The airline issued a formal apology, and Sophie Langley faced disciplinary action. But more importantly, the airline launched a new initiative, a program focused on treating elderly and first-time flyers with special care and respect. Albert and Margaret never stepped into an airplane again. But their story soared higher than any aircraft. It reminded the world that kindness should never be grounded. As Daniel embraced his parents, the weight of their experience pressed heavily upon him. "Mom, Dad, I can't believe you went through that. I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Albert looked at his son, his eyes steady despite the pain. "Daniel, we dreamed of this trip for so long. It was supposed to be magical," he replied, the tremor in his voice revealing the depth of their disappointment. Margaret, still wiping her tears, added, "We wanted to feel the world, not this kind of hurt." Daniel, filled with determination, vowed to share their story so others wouldn't suffer in silence. "Let me share your story, Mum and Dad," Daniel said, his commitment unwavering as he retrieved his phone. He began typing furiously, documenting their tale as a point of reference for change. "I want everyone to know what you've experienced, to understand that no one should endure such treatment, especially not on a day that marks a dream coming true." As he looked at their weary faces, he felt a fierce determination rising within him, knowing that their pain had already begun to resonate with his followers. His words transformed their sorrow into a powerful message about dignity and compassion. Though the days that followed were filled with healing moments between the family, the impact of the flight lingered like an unwelcome shadow. Daniel's article touched countless hearts, igniting conversations about respect for seniors and first-time travelers. As they sat together for dinner, Albert raised his glass to toast, his demeanor resolute. "To new beginnings, even if they come with scars," he declared, gratitude igniting in his eyes. Margaret smiled weakly but felt a warmth enveloping them. It was a start toward reclaiming their joy. Daniel listened intently, absorbing the stories of his parents' lives, the dreams they deferred, and the love that never wavered. With every shared laugh and tear, they forged a stronger bond, one that now held a lesson far greater than any trip could offer. The world had turned its gaze toward compassion, and together, they became part of this transformation, ensuring that kindness would always be the legacy they delivered. As the weeks passed, the family's life gradually returned to a new normal, yet the memory of the flight remained a poignant reminder of their journey. Margaret often found herself at the kitchen table, scrolling through comments on Daniel's article, tears of gratitude mingling with the joy of supportive messages flooding in from around the globe. "Look at this, Albert," she would exclaim, her voice a mix of disbelief and warmth. "People are sharing their own stories. They're standing with us." Albert leaned over, his heart swelling with pride and recognition of the waves of change their experience had ignited. Their quiet little village knew nothing of the rising tide of compassion, but here, in the midst of their dining room, the conversation shifted. They were no longer just victims of mistreatment, they had become ambassadors for kindness and respect. The couple began responding to the messages, their own words crafting a network of solidarity among those who had faced similar challenges. "Every story matters," Albert would say, his eyes sparkling with a newfound purpose. Their story was no longer just a sad tale, it was a beacon of hope, illuminating the importance of kindness in every interaction, every public space. They realized that together, they could mobilize a movement that championed understanding and empathy, forging connections among people who had once felt unseen. As the days turned into weeks, Albert and Margaret found their voices resonating with a community eager to listen. They attended local gatherings, shared their story in heartfelt speeches, and encouraged others to advocate for respectful treatment, especially for the elderly. Their experiences inspired a small movement in their village, prompting discussions at town meetings about inclusivity and compassion in public spaces. It became clear that their journey, though marked by moments of pain, blossomed into something profoundly beautiful, reminding everyone that kindness could lead to a brighter future. With each encounter, Albert and Margaret's resolve deepened, and they realized how much they had to offer. The couple often marveled at the unexpected friendships they formed, bonds that transcended age and experience. At a local market one sunny afternoon, Margaret shared their story with a young mother who had encountered similar disrespect during her travels. "It's not just about being elderly or inexperienced, it's about everyone deserving dignity," she said earnestly. The mother nodded, her eyes wide with understanding, as she conveyed her own struggles with the world often overlooking parents during moments of vulnerability. Albert interjected with a warm smile, "We may not all be flying high, but we can make our ground a kinder place." This moment affirmed their belief: storytelling was a powerful tool for connection and change, and they were eager to share it wherever they could. Their newfound purpose inspired them to organize community forums, inviting everyone to join in discussions centered around kindness and respect. During one such meeting, Margaret stood before a gathering of neighbors, her voice steady. "Each of us carries a story, and we must listen to one another. Let's create an environment where no one feels small or disregarded," she urged, her passion igniting a spark in the audience. Albert nodded in agreement, sharing heartfelt anecdotes of times when kindness had made a difference in their lives. Together, they envisioned a village transformed, where inclusivity and respect shaped every interaction. As the applause filled the room, they realized they were no longer just sharing their pain, they were leading a movement, one rooted in the belief that everyone should be treated with humanity and care, no matter their age or experience. The legacy of their journey was unfolding before them, and the bonds they formed with their community were stronger than any turbulence they had faced in the skies. One evening, during a neighborhood gathering, Albert noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Elena, the flight attendant who had defended them on the plane. She approached with a shy yet genuine smile. "I've been following your story," she said, her voice warm with sincerity. "It inspired me to fight for change in our industry." Margaret clasped her hands together, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You have no idea how much your kindness meant to us," she replied, a sense of connection blossoming between them. In that moment, they realized that kindness had the power to bridge even the widest gaps. Their journey had transformed them from bewildered travelers into champions of compassion. Albert and Margaret stood together, knowing they had turned their pain into purpose, lighting the way for others to follow. They would carry this message forward, ensuring kindness always took flight at 30,000 feet and beyond.